You're in Braves country.
Good afternoon, Braves country. Hope y'all are having a great day. As well, a lot of us are not having a great day as we are barreling down for what appears to be pretty nasty storm in the southeast once again. But hey, if you live in the deep south, you kind of get used to this. Hopefully, you are going to be safe wherever you're at. I did just see an alert. Since this is Braves country, the metro Atlanta area, I won't go through every single warning, obviously, but the metro Atlanta area is now at a 70% flash flooding is what they are calling for right now. So be safe. That's number one with a bullet. Don't worry about any of this baseball stuff. Be safe, and then we'll get to all the rest. But this is a baseball show, so obviously we're going to talk the baseball and what's going on with the Braves, what's going on in the wild card. We're going to tell you about what to expect from the series in Kansas City, and also take a look at the other two series of interest, because at this point we are looking at two other teams that we're monitoring essentially. There's a lot of other things that you can look at it, but two other teams that you that you're worried about other than how the Braves are doing. We're looking at the New York Mets, obviously, and then, of course, the Arizona Diamondbacks. I've got the standings right there in front of you, and they're a little misleading. Don't pay attention to anything but the right column, the loss column. So you see there that the Braves have 71 losses. You see that the Diamondbacks have 71 losses, and the Mets have 70. As of right now, the Braves have the tiebreaker on both of them. Now, that could change. But as of right now, if we end up in a three-way tie, Arizona's left out. The Diamondbacks won, or excuse me, the Mets won their season series versus Arizona. The Braves dominated the season series against Arizona. And as of right now, we have won 6 of 11 contests versus the Mets. Now, of course, most of y'all realize that it's not over, that we're talking about 2 more games being played possibly on Monday. But that's not necessarily going to happen. It just most likely will play at least one of them. If you end up with a scenario, so once again, you're worrying about the loss column. You can't worry about the win column because we've played uneven ball games. But as of right now, the Mets have a half-game lead in the loss column versus Arizona and Atlanta. But they've played they're even Steven with Atlanta, but obviously Arizona's going to play a few more games because Arizona did not get rained out. They have this little new fandangled thing called a roof out there in Arizona, so they don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. A little surprising this day and age. Truist Park was built without some kind of a retractable roof. I mean, it really was dopey on the everything about Truist Park and the Battery has been perfect. Love everything about it. Right? There's nothing that I do not like about the entire Truist Park experience, but they did a dopey job of not putting a roof, not putting some kind of a retractable roof, but just because the simple fact is you live in the South, you know rain is coming, and we also know this dealing with hurricanes is nothing new to the Atlanta, Georgia area. So the fact they didn't build a roof was dumb, but it is what it is where we're at right now. All right, the other thing going into it. By the way, I did see an alert a few minutes ago. The Mets plane has safely landed in Milwaukee. They were making a big deal, but not that they were really in harm's way, but the Mets media was a concern about it. But you have to understand something when it comes to people who live in the Northeast. They don't really understand hurricanes. Yeah, they get them every great once in a while, but they don't really understand how they work. That's why all these dopey comments were being made on social media over the last several days about moving the series. All right, we're going to start off with that because I had to debunk a lot of this nonsense, and it's just utter nonsense that they have been putting out there on both sides. It's just dumb fans ranting and raving and getting all up in their emotions, not thinking about it logically. Number one with the bullet, you don't know where a hurricane's going until it forms. That's number one. We have been told for years and years and years that a hurricane's going this way, and then once it forms, it goes that way. So that's number one. It didn't really form until early yesterday. So the idea that you knew where it was going and when it was going to land is absolutely and utter nonsense. You had a pretty good idea, but they didn't really have a great grasp of it until about Tuesday night. Well, the series had already started. The other thing is, what rained us out yesterday, that wasn't Hurricane Helene. That was a different storm system. And if you think you can predict the weather, the damn Weather Channel can't predict the weather. So get out of here with that nonsense. It's all, hindsight 2020 type of tweeting and whatnot. The other thing is, it's not that easy to just go out and change the day of a game. Teams a lot of times can change the time of a game, but the day of a game, you're talking about the difference between starting a game on Monday, starting a series on Monday as opposed to Tuesday. That was never going to happen. That was never going to happen in that short period of time. There's two things that you got to fight through. Well, there's a handful of things. Number one, the players union. They have a collective bargaining agreement, days off, et cetera, et cetera. So you got to get that approved. Number two, the New York Mets were playing Sunday night baseball. So the Mets earlier in the season didn't even want to concede coming into Atlanta for a random day off that they had a mutual day off together. Remember, this game got rained out in April. So all the Mets fans are saying, the Braves are being hard at it. The Mets wouldn't even fly in for one random game. The only thing that they would agree to was the Thursday night game. Well, why wouldn't they agree to the Monday night game? They were both off. Because they were playing Sunday night baseball. And they were coming off the series with the Phillies. And the Mets didn't know what the hell that looked like back in April. So you gotta think of it that fact on that side. It's not just the Atlanta Braves that realistically didn't want the games moved up, because now you get back to where we were. You flash forward till about 2 weeks ago, and both teams start lining their rotation up for this series. It wasn't an accident that Schwellenbach, Sale, and Fried were going when they did. It's not an accident that the Mets had Severino, Peterson, and Manaea lined up. Those realistically have been their best starters. You could basically make an argument of Quintana over Peterson, but nonetheless, that's the route they wanted to go. So you weren't getting that changed. You were not getting that all of a sudden changed out of nowhere. So put that aside, okay? And so the series realistically was never going to be moved from a Monday start or from a Tuesday start to a Monday start. And then you're talking about, because look, I don't blame a lot of the fans. I blame the writers that started suggesting this, that look, they know better. They're just stirring up the pot. You weren't going to change a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night game in prime time on your television, on all the streamings, to Monday night versus a doubleheader of Monday Night Football. Think about that. Tuesday night and then Wednesday morning? They're not going to change that. They were never going to change that. And if you think they were going to change it, you just don't understand the business of baseball, the business of sports, and that's fine, but just sit down and pipe down, because that was never going to happen. Not in a million years. Not, I feel like, or in my opinion, and blah, 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 blah. What's going to happen? They don't ask Dopey McDopey's opinion in South Kentucky about what they're going to do with a multi-million dollar week in Braves and Major League Baseball. So anyways, just wanted to put that to rest because anything that anyone wanted to talk about with that, it's a non-starter. I just didn't have the energy or the time to tweet all that out or to answer it in there because I saw all these comments and I know where it was coming from. It was coming from the dopey writers who were sitting in there. And one of them who's always stirring it up, he's about half sauced all the damn time anyways. So you can't listen to a damn thing he's saying. I don't care what time it is. All right. So we move on from that. It is what it is now. I can't go back in time anyway, so let's just pretend like they didn't have any kind of a choice. The real choice would have been back in April for the Mets to come in and play a game. But how the hell did the Mets know that Hurricane Helene was coming? So you got to think about that too. You can't blame the Mets, can't blame the Braves. And oh, by the way, we weren't going to fly this because the other thing they were talking about was flying it into another city. All right. Million things wrong with that idea, but I'll give you the top 2 bullet points. A, the logistics of getting all the media and the streamers and the cameramen and everything you think about running a stadium, running a game, in and out of whatever said city. You pick the city, I don't care which one it was. For a 3-game stretch that you normally don't run the show is idiotic. It just is. The other thing is, why would the Atlanta Braves want to concede their advantage of home field in what is arguably the most important games of the year? So if you're a Braves fan, just idiotic take that you would want this thing moved anywhere. And then if you're a Mets fan, you're just whining and moaning. You did the same thing in 2022. You think I don't remember, but I remember. 2022, when the Mets came in here and got their ass swept away and they choked the division away, and they choked when you have DeGrom, when you have Max Scherzer, who was the other one? Chris Bassett, all coming in back to back to back, and you needed one win to clinch the division, and you got swept, and none of the games were competitive. You choked. And back then, there was a storm coming. It wasn't a hurricane, but there was rain projected for the Friday night game and the Saturday night game. I think by Sunday that it was cleared up. And they were talking about then, why not play these games in New York? Because you're scared. Because when it's all said and done, Mets fans believe one thing, and it's been proven true so far, that Truist Park is haunted. And I'm going to use their little moniker, OMG. They lost game 1 and they're about to face Chris Sale in game 2. So there you go with that. So with all that being said, and I know that I do have a few people who are watching that are wondering if we're in harm's way. We are east of the eye. Sometimes that can be the worst. Because the wind, if you're not familiar with hurricanes, the wind is the worst on the eastern part of the eye because the way it swirls. You really will always want to be west of the eye. We rarely get that because we live on the East Coast. So either the hurricane sweeps by us up the East Coast, or it comes in off the Gulf and slaps us. So we're probably going to get some wind. They're expecting power outages. That's why I'm going to try to bring you the Royals versus the Nationals. That will take place at 1 o'clock today. I think 1:10 is the first pitch. I have to double check that. And so nothing else. This show ends before then. But I don't know how long it'll last because the wind is already starting to howl outside. So we may very well end up losing power. And if we do, it is what it is. But the plan is to start bringing you Royals Nationals on Cover Country. It's pinned in the YouTube chat, and you can watch along with the 3D scoreboard and root along. You want the Royals to win. Now, let's get into all that. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of what is actually going on in baseball, and not the Candyland idea that we could have used an entire series, moving an entire. I saw all kinds of dopey One of the most common ones was Miami. They were talking about moving it to any of the cities in the Midwest. It's just dopey. And then what, you're going to fly through that hurricane afterwards to get back home for the Friday night? Just shut it. All right. Positive news in Braves country. Raylo did a side session the other night, and they are expecting him to most likely be available at some point this weekend. Hell, they may push it to the Monday game. But I saw a tweet, I believe, yesterday, and I think, and look, they were just dreaming pie in the sky stuff, but they were saying that because of the doubleheader, it could be a factor of possibly Bryce Elder being your second guy, because remember, a doubleheader, you get the extra, usually extra pitcher available. If we get to game 162, winner take all, in or out of the playoffs, Bryce Elder's not going to be on the mound. They're not going to do that. He hasn't been that good in the minors recently. They are essentially rusty at this point, and because of the off days, you don't have the need for it. Even if we get rained out on Friday, which it isn't looking like it, but let's say it does, you would have to then play 3 days. You'd have to play 5 games. You have 6 guys plus rested. So it's Bryce Elder's not a factor. He had his opportunities. He got beaten to death. Bryce Elder's either going to be a 2025 argument for making a fight for the rotation, or he might be a part of a piece that they move in the offseason. But he's not, unless something terrible happens, he's not going to be a factor in these next few days. All right. What you're looking at right now, you could do a few things. You could manipulate it and hold off with Chris Sale and say, hey, we're going to wait till Monday to use him against the Mets if we need him. And if we don't need him, then we would start the season or start the playoffs with him on Tuesday. And you could do that. And I honestly don't hate that idea. But as of right now, what the theory is going to be is Sale on Friday, Max Fried on Saturday, and you could either go Schwellenbach on Sunday or you could go Charlie Morton. They may save Schwellenbach for one of the games in New York if needed, or if we have everything clinched but we're still playing the games, you don't worry about sitting one of your best bullets out there and you save Schwellenbach for the first game of the playoffs. If you go ahead and use Sale on Friday, then he would be available to pitch on regular rest on the second day of the wild card series on Wednesday. I think that's most likely what they're going to do, because the other thing that you would have if you don't do that, Chris Sale would be like a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, darn near 2 weeks before he'd thrown, and that could be a problem, him coming out rusty. So I don't think they want to do that, and I don't think they want to screw around with the rotation that way. And remember, these games we play against Kansas City are just as important. You could sew up a lot of things. You could punch your ticket. So let's get out of the idea that you would want to. I mean, I made a joke about it because the Mets no longer will have to face Chris Sale, and I was just basically making the joke that you could hold Chris Sale just to scare the hell out of the Mets all weekend, but I don't think that's logically what's going to happen. I think most likely what you're going to get is, because he pitched so well against the Mets, they'll save Schwellenbach for Monday or the playoffs, depending on what they need. And that you're most likely going to get Sale, Fried, because what that would line up is Sale game 2 of the wild card and Fried game 3 of the wild card if needed. And Schwellenbach, if he doesn't have to pitch on Monday, would pitch game 1. If he has to pitch game 1, you got to fight your way in. Then you'll just figure out game 1 of the playoffs once you get there. You can't look too far ahead and start trying to plan things out, because you got to be in the dance to be able to get there. So there's that going on. So that's how how it lines up. But my biggest concern about this weekend against Kansas City is the offense was really starting to click, and now we're taking a couple of days off. Or are we going to come back to an offense that's rusty again? I mean, we just can't win. It's ridiculous. Mets fans want to whine and moan between the injuries and then this crap that's going on. We can't win. It's ridiculous. But you can't worry too much about it. But guys like Michael Harris, who have been starting to really take off the last several games, Matt Olson the past month has really gotten into his groove. I mean, he's got an OPS in the high 900s in the last month of baseball. And it's good to see everybody in the chat. I don't have a lot of time to sit, to give the hellos and everything, but I'm glad to see everyone could make it, and I hope you're being safe wherever you're at. And if you're a little late, just remember YouTube. That's the beauty about YouTube. You can rewind it. If you're watching on Facebook, you're going to have to wait till it's done, and then you can replay it. Now, putting that aside, Michael Harris, and Olson, I just picked those out because they've played so well recently. You just worry about the rust. I don't think you can get any rustier than our catchers, so I'm not worried about rust there. The rest might actually help them to any kind of nicks and bruises. Anybody who's playing catcher, even Travis and Smurf, who have been playing every other day, they're still beat up by the end of the year. If you missed the news before, Austin Riley's done for the season, and barring some kind of a miracle, he won't even be available even if we get into the World Series. But what it looks like right now, they're just going to shut him down and not worry about it, because think about this. There's an outside chance he could be ready in very late October with the doctor's diagnosis. But think about trying to get a guy roaring up and ready to rip and get the rust off of him after being shut down for essentially 3 months to play in a world. You're just not going to. If you've made it that far, you're going to roll with the guys that got you. And I think Austin Riley will continue to be in the dugout and rooting the guys along, and you'll love to see that along with Acuna. But he's essentially Acuna at this point. He's a non-factor. All right, now as far as what are we rooting for? What do we want? We want the Royals to win today. Their magic number is 3. Their magic number is 3. And what that means in the big picture of it is if they win today, they can get it down to 2, obviously, just with the win at 1 o'clock. And what they are going to be scoreboard watching themselves is that, so you get it down to 2 with the Kansas City win. If Minnesota loses tonight to Miami, and they have not played well, they won last night, but they have not played well. And by the way, Marlins kind of had the pitching advantage. It's in Minnesota, but Belazzo is on the bump for Miami. We saw him; he really wasn't that terrible of a pitcher, and he's going up against Festa, who's been a disaster. So, Twins have been tail spinning. If they could lose and Kansas City could win, their magic number then is just 1. And they don't have to win, for those of y'all who don't follow this and whatnot. All they have to do is have Minnesota lose 1. And the moment that happens, Kansas City's going to let the air out of the balloon. They're going to probably celebrate that night and play like crap the next day. And in a perfect world, what would happen was Kansas City would win today. And by the way, I was watching the game last night. They had to use a lot of their bullpen because Michael Lorenzen came out in the second inning, I believe, or third inning. He went out in the third inning, so he went 2 1/3. He had like a hamstring strain that they were getting out. So they used a ton of their bullpen. If they win today, hopefully they have to use a ton of their bullpen. They go in tomorrow limping. So in a perfect world, they win today, the Twins lose tonight and tomorrow, and Kansas City punches their ticket, and they're going to lose interest. That's just human nature. They're going to probably party the night that they clinch. And the other thing would be they're going to start setting the rotation because they'll be in the wild card round. They're not getting the bye. So that's what we're pulling for today. Go Royals today. Go Marlins tonight. And if we do have power, I'm going to put that game on. I have my doubts. And then on Friday, what you're looking at with the Minnesota Twins, after the Miami Marlins leave, the Twins are then hosting the Orioles. So hopefully the Orioles give them a heck of a punch. They don't have the best pitching matchup on Friday. Advantage Twins, but once again, the Twins have just they've fallen apart. So there you have that. That's who you're pulling for. Obviously, we're pulling for the San Diego Padres on the weekend to beat the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Milwaukee is hosting the Mets. There's an argument to be said that if the Mets win, it's good for us. If the Mets lose, it's good for us, because if the Mets win and clinch, they're not going to give a crap if that game has to be played on Monday. They're going to send out their worst, because they're going to try to rest guys, because they have to start a series the very next day. So think about that. You're pulling for the Brewers to beat the Mets, but it's not the worst thing in the world if the Mets win, because as long as they continue to win and Arizona continues to lose, then the Mets punch their ticket. They don't have a shot at the division like the Padres do. I expect the Padres to put their best foot forward. That's another game, another series that, what time is that one tonight? 10:10, and it's Joe Musgrove versus the Bueller. You want the Padres to win, because they still have an outside chance of winning that division. I believe, in my memory's correct, they're 3 out now because of well, actually, I didn't check. Let me double check. When I went to bed last night, they were losing. I'm pretty sure they only had a couple losses. Yeah, they lost. So they're back to 3 back of the Dodgers. If they win tonight, they'd be 2 back with 3 to play. There's an outside chance that the Padres could catch the Dodgers, and so they'll be playing for something until that gets eliminated. Once that gets eliminated, then the Padres are going to start getting ready for the next round. So I know that's a lot of stuff in the air. As far as the series versus the Royals, right now it looks like it's going to be Sale, Max, and Charlie, and we're going to be going up against 3 of their better pitchers unless they clinch. Brady Singer, Lugo, and Reagans right now are expected. Yeah, Nathaniel's talking about Bueller. For folks who may not pay attention, Walker Bueller has been an absolute disaster. I would be willing to put, if I was doing locks today, that would probably be my lock of the day, is that San Diego wins that game. Musgrove's on the mound for San Diego. Bueller with his 5.63 ERA and 1-6 records on the deal for the Dodgers. But it'll be Singer versus Sale, Lugo versus Max, Reagans versus Charlie. They have the advantage on Sunday, but hopefully they've clinched and we don't even see Reagans, because they're going to want Reagans for the game 1 of the wild card. We may not even see Lugo. But Sale, Max, and Charlie, we do know it's going to be Singer tomorrow. Waka is pitching today for Kansas City, so we dodged that. Waka's been pretty good. Singer's been up and down, but he's been much better at home. But we'll just see how that plays out. And remember, we're going to have Grant Holmes available to come out of the pen at any moment, or they save him for a Monday game. And then we also, once again, if you're just joining us, Raylo should be available. He should be coming off the IL. They're probably going to wait until they would decide to use him, because why add him to the roster as a starting pitcher if you don't need him yet? You may not see him get added until, hell, if everything falls perfectly, you may not see him added until Tuesday in whatever city we're playing in. Looking at if you're wondering about the pitching, you got to get into that Kansas City bullpen. It's ranked 23rd in baseball. 23rd in baseball. Our bullpen's ranked 3rd, and a lot of the knuckleheads think that it's bad. We have an outstanding bullpen. But think about, if you think our bullpen's bad, the Kansas City bullpen is ranked 20 spots behind us. There's only 7 teams that have a worse bullpen, and they are teams that are going nowhere near the playoffs. Fire away with the questions, Beav. I saw the comment. I'm going to try to set the last 5 minutes aside to be able to answer any questions. The game today, by the way, is, it's 1:05. So 1 o'clock I'll set aside for final questions, and then we'll get to that. So we'll say another 5 minutes of this, and then we'll do questions, because 105 Royals Nationals, and that'll be over on Cover Country if you want to watch along, chat along. I'm going to be doing some things getting prepared for the storm, but I am going to be watching it and from time to time chiming in. Arizona, who are they facing? Because we're really locked in on what they're doing. They are going to be at home versus San Diego, and it's Merrill Kelly versus Martin Perez on Friday night. Advantage Arizona. Now, this is assuming all these guys pitch and San Diego doesn't pack it up. Jordan Montgomery versus Yu Darvish on Saturday night. Definite advantage San Diego. And then Erod versus King on Sunday. Huge advantage for San Diego. Erod has been up and down. He got clubbed the other night. He has not been good. He hasn't been terrible like Jordan Montgomery, but he hasn't been good. So I would think, everything being equal, San Diego could get 2 of those 3 wins. I would think, everything being equal, the Mets, this is how they lay out. It's Manaea versus Montas, and then they're probably going to shove Quintana on Saturday and Severino on Sunday. That's if these games are needed. And they have not set the pitching staff with Milwaukee past Friday. Friday, it's Frankie Montas. He hasn't been good. Saturday and Sunday, Milwaukee, because they're probably not going to catch. They really need the heavens to break for them to catch either Philly or LA. Philly and LA are still battling out for the best record, and they want that home field. But Milwaukee's at the point now where they would need an absolute miracle. I believe it's at the last one where the Brewers are going to play in the first round, and there's a good chance Atlanta's facing them. So Milwaukee, they're not going to put their best foot forward. Their offense should probably play, because you don't want those guys getting rusty. But the starters is where it's at. So the Mets would have an advantage in every one of those games in the pitching, but you don't know as far as the offense how that carries. And, of course, it's really hard to predict how some of these guys that'll come out of the pen. And, hey, look at it. Milwaukee's got one of the best bullpens in baseball. So if they want to keep their bullpen fresh and they do bullpen games on the weekend, that may actually not be a terrible thing. But back to my original point, the Mets winning at this point is not as bad as it seems if Arizona can take a couple of losses. Let's see. I think that is just pretty close to what everything I wanted to get through here. Let me double check, see if I have any more notes. I was making notes like a madman so I wouldn't miss anything. I think that's pretty much it. So if anyone has any questions, fire away. We'll staying up here for about another 5 minutes or so. And so any questions y'all have, basically right now, until I get anything else, the Hobbit says Padres still drunk after clinching. They haven't clinched. They clinched they clinched a playoff spot, but that's old hat to Padres. They still have a chance at the division. That's really what they're looking at right now. So because of that, right now they're 3 back with 3 to play. If they beat the Dodgers, they would end up with the tiebreaker. By the way, with the Dodgers, they could be 2 back heading to the weekend. And funnier things have happened. So the Dodgers are trying like hell not to have to play in that first round. But let's see where the Dodgers at. The Dodgers are in Colorado, so good luck with that, Padre country. But anyways, you never know what that could do to the Dodgers going into. Can you imagine you're trying to sew up your division and you need your magic number would probably be 2 at that point, or actually could be 3 in theory. But you're trying to win that division and your bullpen's getting shellacked in the Colorado Rocky air. That could be an absolute disaster. Okay, so I don't see anything. Beef said she had a question, but I don't see anything. Oh, here we go. What happens if Atlanta Stadium is not usable for the doubleheader? It'll be usable. It's not. They will find a way. You got to understand how sturdy that structure is. By the time it gets to Atlanta, we're not talking about hurricane force winds. What's more worried about is the flooding, but that should go through today, and then by tomorrow, it's early tomorrow morning, they're expecting it to be okay. And I'm looking at the AccuWeather forecast for first pitch. It's supposed to be partly cloudy and 70 degrees, so perfect baseball weather. It could be an issue people getting to the park. I'm not going to discount that, but they will have all hands on deck. If they can get the game in, barring another storm coming, if they can get the game in, everybody that can be used will be used to get that stadium ready. That's the only good thing about not having a roof is you're not going to have a Katrina type situation where the roof at the Superdome got the huge leak, right? And see, reading some of this stuff, some of it's a little creepy, so we'll leave that out. Here we go. The other things that you'd be looking at for the rest of the weekend, if you're just a baseball fan, you want to keep an eye on things. Not everything is actually all locked up. What you have right now is in the American League, in theory, the Orioles haven't even clinched. You kind of like to see, to be honest with you, you would kind of like to see the Orioles. What time is their game? Baltimore. I'm assuming it's a night game. Oh no, their series starts with. Yeah, okay. So tonight, I'm assuming this will probably be a national feed. I don't have it in front of me. Orioles versus Yankees. You kind of want the Yankees to win. Oh no, I'm sorry. You want the Orioles to win, because if the Orioles win, they're still alive in the division per se. They're going to put their best foot forward tomorrow when they go into Minnesota to face the Twins. So it's Corbin Burns versus Cole. By the way, that's just a phenomenal game to watch. I want to watch that game just because, hell, Burns versus Cole, with the Yankees have a chance to clinch in New York. But if the Orioles win, they stay alive. And as far as the rest of it goes, as far as the wild card, the Orioles have already clinched a wild card berth, but they're trying to win the division. And the Royals, Tigers, and Twins, they cannot catch them. So they're locked into the 4th seed if they don't win the division. So the Orioles could start really pulling back the reins. I don't know if they would do it on Monday night, or Friday night, but they would definitely start doing it later in the weekend. So we need Baltimore to essentially win tonight and have a reason to win tomorrow. And hell, maybe even the Yankees lose tomorrow. Let me see if there's anything else. I don't think there is. I guess we'll go ahead and start getting out of here. But appreciate everybody stopping in. I know this was last minute, but appreciate everyone stopping in. And I don't know when the next time we'll do a Braves Country today. It'll either be, if there's no game on Monday, we're going to do a Braves Country today. But if there is a game on Monday, obviously that's out because we're going to be doing the ball game. And we won't have time to do it on Tuesday when the series starts. We're just going to kind of come on for a quick pregame show before the series starts on Tuesday, assuming we're in. If for some reason we're out, then we'll pick a day to do an end of the season Braves Country Day. Won't worry about getting to that right now. But the other thing I do want to mention is that we decided on the off season. I'm talking about starting in November. It doesn't matter. Even if the Braves get eliminated, we continue to do ball games here on Braves Country Radio. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully the Braves are playing deep into October. But starting in November, on Thursday nights at 7 o'clock here on Braves Country Radio, we're going to start the Once Upon a Pastime series. And we've done them before. It's what you've listened to on rain delay shows. It's a pretty popular series, but this is the first time we're going to do it live. Before, they were just drops, and people seem to really like them. We're going to try doing it live, and there will be an opportunity for people to ask questions, comment, all that kind of stuff. That'll be on Thursday nights in November and throughout the off season, starting in November, 7 o'clock Thursday nights. It'll be about an hour show because we want to get out of the way of the NFL game that I was checking it this week. All the games are scheduled for 8:15 Eastern, so it'll be about an hour show. We'll come on around 7, and we'll be hour, somewhere between 60 and 70 minutes. The other thing is Braves Country Today during the offseason will come your way Fridays at 5:20 p.m. And that's giving people who get off at 5 a chance to kind of either get on their way home and listen, or wherever they're at, be able to watch that. And that'll be the big show we do, usually less than an hour, but it'll be anything of note for that week. Now, when you get to the big parts of the off season, and I'm talking about when the winter meetings happen and free agency starts happening, we're going to pop on all the time. But as far as consistently, Fridays at 5:20 p.m., because it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? We're going to start your weekend off right. We're going to get you caught up with all the news, not just with the Braves, but other teams in our division and in the National League as far as what's going on. And if something major happens in the American League, obviously we would hit that up too. But the Once Upon a Pastime series that'll be on Thursday nights, those are going to be fun. Those are we take something from the world of baseball and we really do a deep dive on it. It could be the history of this and that. It could be something that could be trending. It could be a trending topic. It could be something that people are debating on whether or not to, back in the day we did one about whether or not they should bring the designated hitter rule to the National League, and obviously that's an old one. But it's that kind of thing. It's not just going and talking about players, but it also gives you an idea of people who may not be aware of a lot of things in the world of baseball. As a baseball historian and a Braves historian, I like to try to share that and bring light to it. I can't tell you how much time I've spent over my lifetime reading and learning about Major League Baseball and the Atlanta Braves organization. And I'm talking about it goes all the way back to Boston. I'm talking about when they were the Red Stockings, before the Red Sox existed. All right, we're going to jump off here. It looks like that game's just about getting started. We're waiting for the warm-up to begin, and we're going to Cover Country. It's pinned at the top of this chat. Y'all have a great one, and go Braves. We'll see you Friday night, 7:21 pitch. As of right now, it's Chris Sale Day, so look out. Hot coffee coming in.
You're in Braves country.